Some fossils are not just bones. They are crime scenes. A skull crushed by a predator, but healed. A rib broken in battle, but survived. A bite mark deep enough to kill, yet the animal lived long enough for the wound to close. These creatures were attacked, infected, crushed, and broken, but somehow, they survived. Millions of years later, their fossils still carry the evidence. These are prehistoric animals that should not have survived. Number 1. Triceratops, the skull that shows a face-to-face fight. Triceratops is often remembered as the great horned rival of Tyrannosaurus rex, but some of its most haunting fossils do not simply show an animal that died. They show an animal that fought. The skull of Triceratops was one of the most dramatic defensive structures in dinosaur history. It had 3 horns, a massive bony frill, and a head built like a shield. But that shield did not make it invincible. Some Triceratops fossils show injuries that appear to have healed during life. That detail matters. A healed wound means the animal survived long enough after the injury for bone to repair itself. These were not just clean fossils from peaceful deaths. They were survivors. Some injuries may have come from combat with other Triceratops. Horned animals today often fight members of their own species for territory, dominance, or mates. Triceratops may have done the same, locking horns in brutal contests where one wrong angle could crack bone. Other marks have been studied as possible evidence of predator attacks. A bite to the frill, damage to the skull, a wound that closed. Imagine the scene. 2 giants facing each other in a Cretaceous floodplain. Horns lowered, dust rising, the impact of skull against skull. Or, in another moment, a predator lunging from the side, teeth scraping bone, failing to finish the kill. The most chilling part is not that Triceratops was injured, it is that some of them walked away. Their bones healed, their bodies carried the damage, and millions of years later, the fossil record still holds the scar. But if Triceratops survived brutal attacks, the predator at the center of its world carried scars of its own. Number 2. Tyrannosaurus rex, the predator that survived its own kind. Tyrannosaurus rex was one of the most powerful land predators ever discovered, but power did not make it safe. Some T-Rex fossils show wounds, infections, broken bones, and bite marks that suggest these animals lived violent lives. And some of the most disturbing injuries appear to have come from other tyrannosaurs. A T-Rex bite was not a small wound. Its jaws could crush bone. Its teeth were thick, serrated, and built to punch deep into flesh. A bite from another T-Rex could break ribs, scar skulls, or tear open parts of the body. Yet some tyrannosaurs survived injuries that should have ended them. Healed bite marks on skulls and bones suggest violent encounters between individuals. These may have been fights over food, territory, mates, dominance, or cannibalistic feeding. Whatever the cause, the evidence points to a brutal truth. T-Rex did not only fear starvation or injury from prey, sometimes its greatest danger was another T-Rex. A predator at the top of the food chain still lived in a world of risk. One bad fight could damage an eye socket. One infected wound could weaken the animal. One broken bone could reduce its ability to hunt, but some survived anyway. That is what makes these fossils so powerful. They do not show a perfect monster. They show an animal that was injured, damaged, and still alive. T-Rex was not a movie villain. It was a living creature in a violent ecosystem, and even kings carried scars. But long before T-Rex became the symbol of prehistoric power, another predator was collecting injuries like a record of war. Number 3. Allosaurus, the dinosaur with a life of injuries. Allosaurus lived millions of years before T-Rex. During the late Jurassic, it was a large predator with sharp teeth, powerful arms, and a skull built for ripping into prey. But some Allosaurus fossils show that life as a predator could be almost as dangerous as being prey. Many Allosaurus bones show signs of trauma: broken ribs, injured limbs, damaged vertebrae, possible infections, stress injuries, wounds that healed. This suggests that Allosaurus lived hard lives. Hunting large prey was dangerous. The Jurassic world included enormous herbivores like sauropods, stegosaurs, and other armored or powerful animals. A failed attack could mean being kicked, crushed, stabbed, or thrown aside. A predator had to get close to kill, and getting close was the most dangerous part. An Allosaurus attacking a Stegosaurus risked being struck by tail spikes. One hunting a large sauropod risked being trampled. Even fights with other predators could leave permanent damage. Healed injuries tell us these animals survived events that could have killed them. A broken bone was not treated. There was no medicine, no rest, no safety. If an Allosaurus was injured, it still had to walk, still had to hunt, still had to compete, still had to avoid becoming food itself. That is the dark reality behind prehistoric predators. They were powerful, but never untouchable. Every healed bone is evidence of pain that lasted long enough to become history. And one of the animals that may have wounded predators like Allosaurus was not a hunter at all, but a heavily armed herbivore. Number 4. Stegosaurus, the tail spike that left a deadly clue. Stegosaurus is often remembered for the plates along its back, but its real weapon was at the tail. At the end of that tail were long spikes, sometimes called a thagomizer. These spikes were not decorative. They were weapons capable of delivering serious damage. Evidence from fossil injuries suggests that Stegosaurus may have used its tail spikes in defense, possibly even piercing predators during attacks. One famous line of evidence involves damage found in predator bones that appears consistent with a spike wound. The idea is simple and brutal. A predator attacked. The Stegosaurus swung its tail, and the spike entered bone. This changes the way we should imagine Stegosaurus. It was not just a slow plant eater waiting to be attacked. It was a dangerous animal with a weapon at the end of a powerful tail. A predator approaching from behind would have had to calculate the risk. One strike could injure a leg, puncture tissue, or even cause infection. In the prehistoric world, an infected wound could be as deadly as the initial blow. The Stegosaurus itself may also have carried injuries from fights, attacks, and accidents. Large animals living in dangerous environments rarely lived untouched lives. But the most powerful part of the Stegosaurus story is what it tells us about herbivores. Prey animals were not helpless. Some were armored, some were horned, some were gigantic, and some carried weapons sharp enough to leave a mark in the fossil record. Still, not every prey animal survived by fighting back. Some survived by escaping after the predator had already bitten down. Number 5. Edmontosaurus, the prey animal that survived a T-Rex bite. Edmontosaurus was a large duck-billed dinosaur that lived near the end of the Cretaceous. It did not have horns like Triceratops. It did not have armor like Ankylosaurus. It did not have tail spikes like Stegosaurus. Against a predator like T-Rex, it seems almost unfair. But one Edmontosaurus fossil tells a remarkable story. Some fossil evidence suggests that a duck-billed dinosaur was bitten by a large tyrannosaur and survived. The key is healing. If bite marks on bone show signs of healing, then the animal did not die immediately. It escaped. This means that somewhere in the Cretaceous, a T-Rex may have attacked an Edmontosaurus, sunk its teeth into the animal, and failed to kill it. The prey got away. That single fact changes the scene completely. We often imagine prehistoric attacks as simple. Predator lunges, prey dies. But nature is messier. Hunts fail. Prey escapes. Predators misjudge distance. Injured animals survive. For Edmontosaurus, survival may have meant limping away with deep wounds, infection risk, blood loss, and trauma, then living long enough for bone to repair. There is something almost cinematic about that. A prey animal marked by the jaws of one of the most famous predators in history, and still alive afterward. The fossil does not preserve the chase, but it preserves the outcome. The tyrant bit down, and somehow the victim survived. But some prehistoric violence did not happen between predator and prey. Sometimes, the evidence points to something darker, animals feeding on their own kind. Number 6. Majungasaurus, the cannibal dinosaur evidence. Majungasaurus was a predator from Madagascar. It was not the largest theropod. It was not as famous as T-Rex or Allosaurus, but it is connected to one of the darker fossil stories in dinosaur science. Evidence suggests that Majungasaurus may have fed on members of its own species. Bones attributed to Majungasaurus have been found with tooth marks that match the teeth of Majungasaurus itself. That does not automatically mean it hunted its own kind. It may have scavenged dead individuals, but either way, the implication is unsettling. This predator consumed its own species. Cannibalism in nature is not fantasy. It happens in many animal groups today under certain conditions: hunger, competition, territorial conflict, stress, or opportunity. In the prehistoric world, it would not be surprising, but seeing evidence in fossil bone makes it feel more real. A bite mark is physical proof of behavior. It is not just a skeleton, it is a moment of contact between tooth and bone. For Majungasaurus, that contact suggests a harsh ecosystem, where even death did not guarantee peace from your own kind. Some individuals may have survived attacks from other Majungasaurus, others did not. The fossil record cannot tell us every detail, but it can show us enough to understand the atmosphere of that world. Predators did not live by clean rules. They lived by hunger, opportunity, and survival. Millions of years later, in the Ice Age, another predator left behind bones full of violence. Not from dinosaurs, but from a cat built to kill with blades in its mouth. Number 7. Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat with broken bones. Smilodon, the saber-toothed cat, is one of the most famous predators of the Ice Age. Its long canine teeth made it look almost unreal. But its fossils reveal something deeper than appearance. Many Smilodon remains, especially from places like the La Brea tar pits, show injuries and signs of trauma. Broken bones, healed fractures, and damaged joints suggest that life for these predators was physically brutal. Smilodon hunted large prey. Bison, camels, horses, ground sloths, and young mammoths may all have been part of its world. These were not easy animals to kill. A failed attack could mean being kicked, crushed, thrown, or gored. And because Smilodon relied on ambush and close contact, it had to get dangerously near to its prey. Its powerful forelimbs may have helped it hold animals down, but that also meant struggling against creatures much larger than itself. Some injured Smilodon individuals appear to have survived long after suffering damage. That has led scientists to discuss whether these cats may have had social behavior, or whether injured individuals could still feed through scavenging or group tolerance. Whatever the answer, the injuries show that Smilodon was not simply a perfect killing machine. It was a predator living on the edge. Every hunt could feed it. Every hunt could break it. The saber teeth made it famous, but the healed bones tell the real story. And Smilodon was not alone in those tar pits. Another Ice Age hunter left behind thousands of bones, and many of them carried the marks of a dangerous life. Number 8. Dire wolf, the pack hunter that lived through trauma. The dire wolf was one of the most common large predators found in the La Brea tar pits. Thousands of dire wolf fossils have been recovered, creating one of the richest records of any extinct Ice Age carnivore. And those bones tell a harsh story. Dire wolves were powerful pack hunters, but they lived dangerous lives. Fossil evidence shows injuries, broken bones, dental damage, and signs of stress. Like modern wolves, they likely hunted in groups, targeting large herbivores in a world filled with competition. But pack hunting does not remove danger. It multiplies contact. A dire wolf attacking a bison or horse risked kicks, falls, crushing injuries, and bites from other predators. At tar pit sites, predators may have been drawn to trapped prey, only to become trapped themselves. The dire wolf was not built for fantasy battles. It was built for endurance, cooperation, and repeated risk. Some survived injuries long enough for bones to heal. Others died in the traps that preserved them. There is something eerie about the La Brea record. It is not just one death. It is an entire ecosystem caught over thousands of years. Predators, prey, scavengers, accidents, struggles, and survival. Dire wolves were successful hunters, but their fossils remind us that success did not mean safety. But perhaps the most haunting evidence of survival does not come from dinosaurs or predators. It comes from ancient humans, close enough to us that their injuries feel uncomfortably familiar. Number 9. Neanderthals. Ancient humans built for injury. Neanderthals were not monsters. They were humans, close relatives of ours, who lived through some of the harshest conditions of the Ice Age. Their bones often show signs of injury, fractures, trauma, arthritis, healed wounds, damage from hard physical lives. For years, researchers noticed that some Neanderthal injury patterns looked similar to those seen in rodeo riders, especially injuries to the head, neck, and upper body. The comparison is not exact, but it gives a sense of the violence of close-range encounters with large animals. Neanderthals hunted dangerous prey with close-range weapons. That meant getting near animals that could kick, gore, trample, or crush them. A hunt could end with food for the group, or with broken bones, infection, and death. But many injuries healed. That matters. A severely injured Neanderthal may not have survived alone. Healing from major trauma takes time, food, protection, and care. Some fossils suggest individuals lived with injuries or disabilities long enough that others may have helped them survive. This adds a different kind of darkness to the story, not just violence. Endurance, a body damaged by the Ice Age, still kept alive by intelligence, cooperation, and community. Neanderthal bones remind us that survival was never clean. It was painful, physical, and shared. And across the fossil record, There are moments where the predator failed, the prey escaped, and the evidence was locked into stone. Number 10. The fossils that preserve failed attacks. Some fossils are famous because they show death, but others are powerful because they show survival. A healed bite mark means an attack failed. A repaired fracture means the animal kept moving. An infected bone means the body fought back. These details turn fossils into records of individual lives, not just species, not just extinction, individuals. One dinosaur with a damaged rib, one predator with a scarred skull, one prey animal that escaped a bite, one ancient human who survived a broken body. The fossil record is incomplete. Most animals that ever lived left no trace at all. Most injuries disappeared with the flesh. Most fights, hunts, and escapes were never preserved. So when a fossil does show trauma, it becomes something rare, a moment of ancient violence that survived deep time. It tells us that prehistoric life was not a clean museum display. It was hunger, pain, risk, healing, failure, and endurance. The animals we imagine as monsters were still vulnerable. The prey we imagine as helpless could sometimes survive the jaws of giants. And the bones beneath the ground are not silent. They are damaged. They are scarred. They are evidence. These fossils do not just tell us that prehistoric animals existed. They tell us what they endured. They were bitten, broken, infected, crushed, hunted, and scarred. And some of them lived long enough for their bones to heal. That is what makes them unforgettable. Not their size, not their teeth, not their armor, their survival. The past is far stranger than we think. And this is only one chapter. Subscribe to hear more about mysterious animals of the past.